Come closer. A little bit closer. Between you, me, and the gatepost, I am not perfect. Now, please don't tell anyone. I just wanted to share it with you so you know where I'm coming from. But let me ask you a question. Do you ever find yourself working through every single detail of a project, or worse, not get started at all? What about fussing over whether something has been done right, or going back to do something all over again? I can honestly say I believe perfectionism is a blight upon humanity that convinces you that you're never good enough, no matter how much effort you put into things. You'd think we would avoid this kind of thinking just because it's so much work, but in truth we're raised to believe that if you can't do something right, perhaps you shouldn't be doing it at all. Imagine how much we're missing out on with this kind of attitude. Now, if you're tired of feeling like you're never going to measure up, finish a project, or accomplish your goals, it might be time to be imperfect, just like me. And rather than the curse of perfection, wouldn't you rather enjoy a life of authenticity and imperfection? And the really cool thing is, this switch doesn't even have to be difficult. Perfectionist tendencies can lead us to become very harsh and judgmental, especially toward ourselves. And when you're ready to embrace imperfection, this is the first thing you need to tackle. This starts with accepting the fact that you're only human, and humans will always make mistakes. Not only is this normal, especially in my case, you can ask my wife, but it's encouraged because it's the best way to learn. And to act on this, you start by cutting yourself some slack. Be kind to yourself when you mess up, and then start recognizing those around you are worthy of the same kindness. We're a population of imperfectionists. You're only human, though I don't necessarily agree with this phrase 100% because we're capable of some amazing things. It does open up the idea that we can make mistakes. Let's take a look at some of those perceived shortcomings of yours. Are you really so sure that they're flaws, or could they be advantages? How about building a new course and actually launching it next week to start getting some revenue coming into your business instead of working on it for months and months and months, never putting it in danger of selling? There is nothing quite so damning as the word shoulda. With it, you remind yourself of your failures, both in the outcome and the execution. Sure, maybe you should have handled things differently, but not everything is going to work out the way you want in every situation. Imperfection reminds you just how much more important it is to learn from the experience before you stall out. We can't change the past, and there's no way to predict every future outcome. We're not Doctor Strange in the Marvel Universe. Wouldn't it be better to focus on what you can do now instead of getting caught up in any shouldas? No one remembers the past like a perfectionist. They'll go over a conversation they had with someone again and again and again in their heads and hear the dialogue, especially if the conversation hadn't gone that well. They'll also recognize or agonize over the things they should have said. And this kind of rumination keeps you stalled out in the past without ever moving past those kinds of moments so you can start new conversations without that fear of making sure it's perfect. Imperfection accepts not every conversation or situation is going to go well. It allows for the encounters which make us cringe and move past them. And what about the future? Perfection would have you worry about what comes next to the point where you actually forget to be in the moment at all. Imperfection teaches you to let go of the outcome. You're not ignoring it, just accepting it's there. It's not always under your control. Isn't it better to focus on the journey and enjoy what's happening now instead? Think of the feeling of actually launching that course. Perfectionists tend to hide who they are, meaning their circle of friends, their colleagues, and their connections see someone wearing a mask instead of being the real deal. And while it's normal to want to appear your best, this can lead to many surface friendships and false expectations on the part of those around you. These kinds of shallow relationships also tend to be exhausting, as you're always having to play a part when you're with them. When you embrace imperfection, you show the world your authentic self. Imagine how much easier it is not to have to play a role when you're out with people you know. Better yet, isn't it a lot nicer to know that people are actually hanging out with you because they like you or like the real you? Perfectionism, see, I made a mistake there, you should watch this. Perfectionism stops you doing what you need to do, whether it's building that course, making that sales call, or even just building your business. After all, if there's a chance you'll fail, why try? Carry on talking about what you want to do instead. What's even worse is being unsure of what to do. Jumping in can be terrifying, especially if you might be heading in the wrong direction altogether. With imperfection, these worries kind of evaporate. There's absolutely no reason to hold back. You already know and accept you will make a mistake at some point, but if you do, you can try again. What are you telling yourself? The perfectionist has a whole mental notebook of negative comments to tell themselves in any given situation. Negative words such as failure and useless are likely to come up. It's so easy to beat ourselves up when we hold ourselves to an impossible standard. And this is where imperfection becomes so powerful. Here's where you can squash negativity, replacing it with a positive thing to say in each circumstance. Why not praise your efforts instead of raking yourself over the coals for perceived failure? At least I tried should be your mantra. When you chase imperfection, you bring more questions to the table, and this can be hard for the perfectionist who gets stuck in the rut of thinking there's only one way to do anything. With imperfection, you can build a better team or surround yourself with the right people. Allow room for more ideas, creativity, and the possibility for answers you might never have thought of on your own. Hearing new ideas is so important, especially from those around us. The problem? Perfectionists tend to become very self-critical, and because of that, somewhat isolated. Whether they say it out loud or not, they will drive themselves and possibly others crazy in their negative attitudes towards how people get things done. With imperfection, we recognize there comes a time to shut up and listen, even when you don't agree. After all, people who acknowledge imperfection also understand they might be wrong and learn something from a new approach. There is nothing more nightmarish to the perfectionist than mistake. After all, isn't this nothing more than physical proof of their failures and shortcomings? This is why perfectionists freeze when it comes time to take action. The person that accepts they're imperfect is more relaxed when things go wrong. I don't like mistakes any more than anyone else, but I recognize there is a value in making them. It's where my best lessons have been learned. Also, sometimes mistakes open up new pathways to something else you might have never have thought of otherwise. The perfectionists don't ask for feedback because they don't like the answers, unless they're just praise and admiration. And when you're willing to embrace the fact that you are imperfect, you acknowledge you might have room for improvement somewhere that you're unaware of. Asking someone to give you an honest assessment and then really listening to what they have to say can show you some surprising things you might never have learned otherwise. It would be a tragedy. It would be a tragedy to miss out on something important because you were too afraid to ask. The problem with being a perfectionist is it never allows for someone else to be right. The person who chases imperfection, no matter how slowly, will allow for the possibility they might be wrong in some regard and are willing to change their mind. Imagine how important this one single action is. If no one in the past had been willing to have their minds changed, we'd have no new developments in science or technology at all. After all, everything new which we embrace today was innovative and the wrong way to do things at one time or another. Well, maybe not the wrong way. We went from horses to horse and carriage to cars to trains to planes. Without making mistakes, we wouldn't have got there. The life of imperfection is one of authenticity and honesty. Truly, there is nothing quite so freeing as being able to be myself, warts and all. Allow yourself to be imperfect. Discover just how good it feels to let loose and do things instead of always standing on the sidelines worried you won't be good enough when the time comes. Now, just remember, don't share this video with anyone. I shared this with you in confidence and I don't want anyone else knowing that I'm imperfect. Don't forget to subscribe to the Content for Coaches channel and click that bell to be notified of new videos when they post. This is Steve Black with Content for Coaches. Yes, I am imperfect, but thanks for listening.